Good morning, West Coast. You're listening to Long Beach Radio, and I have on the phone Serge Dedina. Is that correct pronunciation there, Serge?
That's fine, yeah.
All right. He's part of the presentation here during the Whalefest, and you'll be able to catch him on Friday, March 12th at 7 p.m. at the Clackwood Community Theatre, speaking, about a book and the pertinent information about the book. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Serge, and why you're coming up to visit?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I was invited by the Pacific Rim Whale Festival to really talk about gray whales, and I work in Mexico, in Baja California, in Tofino. All of you guys are on the north end, or the sort of the north-central end of the migratory route, where a lot of the whales are feeding. So you're seeing whales either they're coming up or going down to Mexico. And really, it's interesting. In Mexico, they consider whales to be Mexican by birth. So they feel like they're allowing the whales to travel on tourist visas to come north to visit people in Canada and Alaska. And then they obviously welcome them home during the winter months.
That's a cool perspective. I never thought of it that way, but it makes sense for sure.
Yeah, and I'm the executive director of Whalefest, and you can find us on wildcoast.net. And we're a conservation organization that has been working in partnership with local communities and Mexican NGOs and the Mexican government to protect the whale habitat, but more importantly, empower local communities so that fishermen and their families actually benefit from the whale watching industry and therefore become some of the strongest advocates for gray whale conservation along their entire migratory route.
Wow, that's interesting. Like I said, I never really thought about the idea that whales being Mexican by birth come kind of their tourists as much coming up here, sort of coming to eat. We were talking earlier before we got on the phone. One of the issues actually that's of a concern to the Mexican whale watching and tourist population and people down there is the climate change affecting possibly the eating habits of the whales and how the migration is being affected by that. Do you want to have a little insight?
Yeah, well, what we started noticing was that the whales were that were coming down were a lot skinnier than ever, and there's a whole team of Mexican and American scientists who are studying that issue. And the big concerns are obviously that because of global climate change and the increase in sea temperatures in the Bering and Chukchi Sea, that the population of amphipods, or what the whales are feeding on, has declined. And so whales are spending more time around areas like Tofino and the coast of Canada looking for food, and therefore they're spending less time in the lagoons in Baja California. So what scientists have discovered is that the whales are spending a lot less time in the lagoons, and actually there's a lot less calving going on. There are a lot less calves that are born in the lagoons, and more importantly, the whales are spending. There are very few calves in lagoons at all. So there's been a very dramatic change in the population use of the lagoons in Baja California. And that's all not only concerned, obviously, for the whales, but also for those folks who are dedicated to ecotourism and who, instead of going out and fishing and maybe catching sea turtles illegally to feed their families, are making their living from ecotourism. So it's something that's of concern, obviously, to the whales and the fishing families who make their living from the whales.
Wow. You speak of the conservation organizations and the people that you work with down there to make all this work. Some references in the little write-up here that I have about some pretty major conservational efforts you've made. One including a salt harvesting location that could have affected the lagoons in the region down in Mexico, and a couple other events. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. Well, I just got back from Baja, and I'm here on the U.S.-Mexico border in Imperial Beach, California. We're the last town on the California coast. And I just got back from a 6-day trip down to San Ignacio Lagoon. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site in a Mexican national park. And unfortunately, about 15 years ago, the Mitsubishi Corporation, in partnership with a Mexican government-owned mining company, decided that they wanted to place the world's largest industrial salt harvesting facility on the north shore of San Ignacio Lagoon. And San Ignacio Lagoon, think of the plains of Africa, but with water in it. And instead of giraffes and elephants, you have whales, dolphins, and sea turtles. It's an amazing, huge landscape surrounded by 3 mountain chains, but very desert. It's very dry, very dramatic. And so the company argued, of course, that a half a million acre industrial salt harvesting facility would have no impact on the whales or the lagoon. And a coalition of environmentalists, including myself and Wildcoast, spent about 5 years fighting that project. And 10 years ago, President Ernesto Zedillo canceled the project and said that, basically the value of the whales on the lagoon to Mexico and to the world was worth much more than the potential profits from the salt facility. But what was important there was that President Zedillo actually went out with his family whale watching. And anybody who's gone whale watching knows that it's going to be hard to look people in the eye and then, do something that's going to destroy the whales or their habitat. So it was a really remarkable victory. And we were just down there celebrating the 10th anniversary of that decision. And we've been actually working with local communities to do conservation easements or purchases of the significant habitat around the lagoon that would have been actually destroyed by Mitsubishi to make sure that project could never happen again.
Protect it more long term. That's actually interesting, quite relevant actually to a potential copper mine development they've been talking about in our region up here. You might end up getting some people asking you questions about that process, maybe to help with their own situation up here in Tofino.
Right, I've been reading about that, and I think British Columbia has been pioneering in acquiring a lot of land that would have been used for logging, and really, identifying conservation as something that's very important, not only for ecosystems, but for local communities who've changed from, harvesting things to more sustainable activities like whale watching and ecotourism.
Sweet. Okay, let's talk about the task at hand this Friday, March 12th, 7 p.m. at the Clayoquot Sound Community Theater. You'll be there to talk, obviously, about some of the stuff we've been talking about. Saving the Gray Whale, People, Politics, and Conservation in Baja California is the book, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And is there anything else we can expect to hear from you?
Well, Tofino's a big surf community, and I'm a surfer, and, not only when we're stopping the Salt Project where we saving whales and their habitat, but actually some of the best surf breaks in Baja California would have been also destroyed by the Salt Project and other activities. So I'll be for the Surfers President, we're talking about saving whales and some good waves as well, which I think will be interesting to people in Tofino.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. We were actually talking. I hope the storm blows over. The storm we're getting in the next couple of days blows over in time to leave you with some good surf while you're here. Yeah,
I sure hope so. It'd be nice to get some. It looks like a beautiful place to surf. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I tell you what, the first Canadian 6-star qualifying series event winner won here just a couple of months back, and it was a local boy.
Yeah, we paid attention to that. In fact, all the Groms, the little surfer kids in my neighborhood definitely know all about that, and were talking to me about it as well.
Sweet. Well, I look forward to seeing you when you get here, and maybe we'll catch you in the lineup in the surf.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Right. Thanks for your call.
Okay, bye.